Hello, everybody. Welcome to Microlearning Applications in the Real World. I wanted to thank everybody for registering to attend Learning Views webinar series brought to you by TrainingPros and Harrisburg University. My name is Ty Wheeler. I am the Relationship Manager for TrainingPros, Field Account Manager. I have been with TrainingPros just over a year, and I serve clients in the Southeast market. I am based in Nashville. I come from a background that's pretty diverse. I've worked in marketing as a graphic designer. I've been in inside sales. I recently transitioned into instructional design and obtained my advanced degree in instructional design and technology. So I am happy to be part of TrainingPros and this partnership with Harrisburg University. TrainingPros and Harrisburg University are partnering on the Learning Views webinar series because we want to share the latest developments that TrainingPros is observing with our clients, and we want to demonstrate how Harrisburg University is able to provide the master's levels program to professionals who want or need to pursue an advanced degree in learning technologies. TrainingPros is the leading provider of contract and learning and development talent in the U.S. We provide organizations with talent that they need to develop, design, and deliver learning solutions to the organizations when they don't have the internal capacity or expertise. We provide instructional designers, technical communicators, e-learning and module learning developers, trainers, facilitators, anything that you could think of along the lines of training and development. So Harrisburg University translates the latest developments in learning technologies into master's programs for professionals responsible for building skills and capabilities in corporate organizations. So Harrisburg University provides students with the leading edge approaches and skills to help them apply existing and emerging learning technologies in a variety of environments. So today our webinar leader is going to be Teresa Davenport, and she will show us how to comprise a total learning solution in micro-learning courses. Included in these discussions will be addressing the real-world challenges faced when developing micro-learning, such as organization within an LMS, creating a solid development review pipeline, and how to promote on-demand micro-learning. So participate, share, and learn. Teresa Davenport is the founder and CEO of Davenport Design and Development. She enjoys helping clients find innovative learning solutions that incorporate an element of what could be. She's a trend spotter, and she enjoys finding ways to join star performers with the latest delivery technologies, including micro-learning, adaptive learning, social learning, and with close to 100 clients ranging from global manufacturing to government and academia, as well as technology and healthcare. So I will hand it over to Teresa and let her further explain what we can learn today. Thank you.
All right, Ty, thank you so much. I was having some technical issues on my end. You were cutting in and out, so please let me know if anyone's having trouble hearing me, and I'll try to either speak slowly or more clearly and hope we don't have any technical difficulties other than what I'm having coming in. So I'm so excited to be with you today and talk about microlearning. It's one of my favorite topics. And as Ty was just explaining, I've been working with TrainingPros and doing learning and development things for, oh wow, with TrainingPros probably close to 20 years now. I believe I met Steve Capon, the CEO, in the mid 90s when he just sat down. He was saying, I'm thinking about starting this company, which is now TrainingPros, and it's just so neat to see how this company has evolved and grown, and I've loved being a part of it. So where does microlearning fit into all of that, and where does it fit into our real world? That's what we're going to talk about today, and let's just go ahead and jump right in. I believe we've already talked about me. Oh, I will encourage you, if you've never heard any of their micro-learning webinars, they are on my website. I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love getting new connections there. And there's some blogs and, like I said, webinars related to microlearning and other learning and development topics that you can find on my website. As far as microlearning goes, in the first microlearning webinar we did, we're a group of learning and development professionals here. So the term is really still, I'd say right now, we pretty much have all settled on what it is. But we took a collaborative view in that first webinar and said, okay, well, what would we say it is as learning and development professionals? So we came up with a definition, and here it is. Microlearning is a short, focused learning event that is designed to meet a specific learning outcome. So today, when we talk about microlearning, we're going to talk about it within this context, and we're going to see how far can we push that envelope of what microlearning is, and how can we as learning development professionals leverage it. So as you're listening today, here's the frame of mind that might help you as you're working with your client or with your organization where you're an employee. Think about if you're being asked, so we need a learning solution. What would you recommend? And they give you some ideas of what they have in mind. Today, as you listen, think about how you could present a solution that fits within this microlearning umbrella. So we're going to look at all different kinds. And then toward the end of the webinar, you'll have some opportunities, and actually throughout, you'll have some opportunities to share some of your current microlearning experiences or some of the challenges and things you're facing right now. So keep that mindset on, and I think you'll really get a lot out of this. And in fact, I would like to make this a collaborative webinar as well. We're going to, even in the next slide, we're going to begin collecting information from you that if you come back and listen to the recording, and we end up gathering some statistics from the chats and the information you share, then we're going to have some really sound data to move forward with that is based on you, the people who are in the field doing the work. So, Justin, I believe our next slide is one of those polls. Yes. So in your world, Justin's going to put a poll up. And what we're asking here is, in your work world right now, how are you seeing microlearning being leveraged based on the definition we just saw? Not what are you creating, but how are you seeing it being used? You can choose any of these that apply. So are they short compliance courses, soft skills development? Is it part of onboarding? Are you seeing technical skills development such as simulations, role-based skills development, so specific skills you're trying to develop within your role? Or any others that you think of that we did not mention here. So take a few minutes and select any of these that apply. And then in the chat, we'll be keeping an eye on that. I would love to see what you are finding in your organization that may not fit within any of these categories. All right. Great. All right, so Justin, when this starts, it looks like everybody's about finished. Could you broadcast the results so we can all see where we landed with our leveraging microlearning? It looks like the highest one, surprisingly to me, is in the area of soft skills development. So love hearing how you're using microlearning for soft skills to see how. I'm trying to think of some ways you might be using it. So feel free to enter again in your chat how you're leveraging microlearning. And I also see a lot of it's being used for onboarding, product knowledge, that's great, sales skills, okay, and then technical skills development is third, and then role-based skills development, we had 40%. So that's awesome. All right, well, let's continue on and let's look at our next poll question. I believe it's a very similar question, but it's more about you. How is microlearning being delivered? So this is more thinking about it from an instructional designer perspective, and maybe it's you doing the developing. But are you seeing more microlearning being delivered to learners in more of text-based formats? Or is there a high learner interaction? Is it highly interactive? Heavy animation graphic use, such as a video type thing that's more passive learning. Augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, gamification, other. All right, and again, please use the chat to explain your other uses. Looks like the highest use we're seeing of microlearning is heavily text-based, and then secondarily more of the video-based or heavy animation and graphics. All right. So I'm continuing to look at your chat, just seeing any more specifics you want to share. Please do so there. Okay, so our highest rating is in the, again, the heavy animation and graphic use, which some of us think of that as more like a level 3 interactive e-learning course. That might be what you have in mind as well, as opposed to more of the text-based, I hate to call it that, but what we might call a page turner, where you're just reading a screen and then you move on. And then I love what Deborah Barrett says. We use it mostly in quick videos, some with simulations. That's awesome. All right, well, let's continue on. I believe we had one more chat, and by the time we get to it, we may have actually answered our next question. But Justin, would you show our next question we had here? Okay, yeah, could you share an example? And we've got answers here. I believe everyone can see these, of a microlearning experience that you are developing or have developed that falls into one of the categories we were just talking about. Those were text-based. If you have something really out there like a virtual reality, something you've done that's really innovative, I'd love to hear that example as well. But some of your examples of text-based and your videos you're doing, that would be awesome. YouTube videos by far. Okay, great. And I can't quite see all of Susan's answer, but a client that's requesting management of some sort. Okay, we've got infographic, software technology for just-in-time learning, explainer video, so how-to types, okay, simulations of how to complete forms, quick refreshes on operating technology such as point-of-sale systems. So I love that you're using to look back on something you've already learned. We will definitely be talking about that today. All right, awesome. Okay, we're going to move on, but I would love to hear your answers. If you were trying to type an answer and you did not get to complete it here, feel free to use the chat just to keep this conversation going, because again, we're just building a wealth of ideas and options for you that you as a designer may not have thought about before. So keep on adding in the chat if you don't add here. And Justin, let's move on back to the presentation. Great. Okay, so these were just a few of the polls that I had as placeholders. I'm going to move past those. All right, what I've got right here is ways of learning. In microlearning, how do people learn? And if you think about it, microlearning is just smaller pieces of learning. So this is really just looking at a microcosm of our larger learning and development world. You that have followed me and worked with me in the past know that I just love Bloom's taxonomy, and I tend to use it in just about everything that I do. For this webinar, I turned Bloom's taxonomy a little bit and tried to come up with something that fit more the nature of what we're focused on here. Right now, it doesn't have a name. I'm really still kind of building this out, but this is as far as I've gotten it. And what we have here is a picture of really what I find myself doing as an instructional designer more and more for clients. And, with Bloom's taxonomy, if you don't know about Bloom's taxonomy, just do a quick query while we're talking. You can see a quick graphic of it anywhere on Google. Bloom starts with a learner learning concepts, words, terms, very basic chunks of information before they can understand and apply that. Well, what I'm finding is we're going a step below that or before that in my learning and development world these days, and probably yours as well, and taking on a role that I think historically has really belonged with marketing. And I'm often holding hands with marketing when I'm developing these pieces, and that is the inform and engage. So much of our learning these days is being pulled by the learner rather than pushed to the learner. So they have the option when they're going to take it or if even they're going to take it. So in order to get a learner interested and excited and create some ownership and loyalty, we need to be able to inform and engage our learners. So I'm creating that now as sort of a precursor to learning your terms and concepts and skills. I think our bread and butter for years as instructional designers has been developing those learning solutions that focus in that gray box, terms, concepts, and skills. I set apart testing understanding because in the world of microlearning, a lot of the microlearning I am creating as a standalone piece is just assessment. And it might be, well, we'll talk about exactly what that might look like in just a minute. And then the final one that is at the top of this is exploring new worlds. And what exactly does that look like? In microlearning, it's really something that could encompass all of the previous three. But let's just look at these in a little more detail, and I think you'll see what I mean. In the inform and engaged, which is not, let's try this, there we go. Inform and engage, these are typically what a lot of our participants were saying come in the form of video. Also, we might, with that video, include some animation that might be characters rather than real people or real objects. We might have audio that includes voiceover and even a music track. And we might have not much text, but just text that is representative of what you're listening to on the screen. And then in these, there's typically no interaction, none at all. It's just a passive view. But at the end of it, the viewers are excited about what's coming. In the learn terms, concepts, and skills, with these, I think you're all familiar with these. We might have that largely text-based course, some simulations perhaps for skill building, voiceovers, and knowledge checks are typical of what you'd see here. And I notice I've got knowledge checks here, and then I have test understanding as the next box. The reason I did that is because sometimes the micro learnings would include a knowledge check within the presentation of new concepts or skills. So they might be all inclusive. But as I said earlier, they might also stand alone. So some of the micro learning products I've been creating that fit within our definition of 3 minutes or under, or 5 minutes or under, I think in some cases, are gamification. So a game that a learner or learners can play might involve some competitive learning, but they're short, very short. And then on a more formal side, a structured assessment that is testing, say, a compliance course. So you might take the compliance module as a very short presentation of some knowledge, and then the assessment would be a separate piece. And then on the interactive quizzes, those again could be formal, they could be informal, but just as in the case of a structured assessment, it means that the user has to do something in order to complete the assessment. I think it's pretty much a given for any assessment that you would take. And then in exploring new worlds, what we've got here is something that we really, I don't think any of you actually responded that you're creating augmented reality or virtual reality, or a combination of those. But what we are seeing, what I'm finding, is that a lot of videographers I'm working with are being asked to create these types of learning solutions. And they're turning to me as an instructional designer saying, I know how to record them and prepare them and produce them, but I really don't have the learning mindset. So I'm partnering with a lot of people in the video world who need help on that side. And I think we as learning and development professionals are going to be called on in increasing numbers to create these types of learning solutions. Now, why are they micro-learning? They don't necessarily have to be, but if they are, think of this as the experience for the user would be broken into smaller experiences that probably are going to be related and might even progress in a lockstep model. If you've played any kind of online game where you can open a new world by completing the old world, from our point of view, that's what would make it microlearning, is each of those worlds would be small and contained. So I'm going to move on. And as always, if you have questions about what I've just shared, just be adding them to the chat. And Justin, as we go through, if you'll just be gathering chat, we'll have a short Q&A at the end of our webinar, and we can go back and address any questions that you had at that time. So when to learn? When you're presenting microlearning, many times microlearning is a part of a much larger learning solution, and you have microlearning modules or pieces that come along as a part of this larger learning solution. So in this case, what I presented here is when you're going to use microlearning to support an instructor-led learning. And for these, you might leverage microlearning before the ILT event, during it, and after the ILT. So let's look at how that might actually play out. In the pre-event, once again, as we had just looked at on the previous slide, you might use your pre-event microlearnings to inform and engage your learners. Hey, we've got this instructor-led course coming. You will want to be a part. You won't want to miss it. And again, it depends on whether it's compulsory or whether it's an elective by the learner. But in whatever form, you might be, as an instructional designer, tasked with promoting the event. Now, I will remind you in pre-event, this wouldn't be necessarily the only way the event is being promoted. There could be communications going out via email, lots of other hype going on. But from a developer perspective, what are you going to create that is short and to the point and gets the learners engaged and excited? Another way you can leverage pre-event in a microlearning is many organizations are saying, well, let me say it like this. If you think of the flipped classroom model, you want to use that classroom. Classrooms are expensive, much more expensive really to deliver and maintain than your e-learning. So organizations say, look, if I'm going to get my return on investment in the instructor-led, then I only want to use that instructor-led event for things that can only be done in the classroom. So practicing a skill, getting feedback, getting peer support, working in groups, those things are for a classroom. The pre-event microlearning could be learning those terms and concepts in an e-learning format before they enter the classroom. Typically, these employees are very busy. They only have short periods of time available to learn. So again, microlearning is the perfect solution for this flipped classroom model. During instructor-led, I would love to hear from you. Be entering in the chat if you would like. How are you leveraging microlearning in a classroom? It seems like it's a classroom, so why would you even have microlearning? Well, some ways I can think of are at the beginning of a session. If you want to get a lot of excitement going, once again, you could leverage a short video. It might have even been one of the promos that you used to get people excited about coming to the event. You could show it again here. Or it could be another one that really, once again, gets people really excited and engaged about what they're about to learn. And then, of course, if you're doing a soft skills instructor-led course, and you might not have the same facilitator every time, or you may not be sure that the facilitator is going to demonstrate the desired skill in the way it needs to be demonstrated, then videos are a perfect way to go. And they will represent the behavior in exactly the way it's supposed to be, because you, the designer, work with a subject matter expert to create a video that is representative of the desired behaviors. And that's what you're going for. That's how you would use microlearning within an ILT course, is that facilitator would stop periodically and say, now we're going to watch this vignette and see how to model this behavior, or see how this behavior is being modeled. Typically, the participants at that point would have some sort of guide sheet where they're looking and noting the behaviors that they're supposed to be seeing. And then finally, it's fun to use competitive learning as a microlearning event. in ILT, like a game at the end of a module, and I'll be giving some specific examples of these in just a few minutes. And the post-ILT, what are we doing after a learning event to ensure that the learners keep that learning fresh and sharp? So microlearning is the perfect avenue for skills reflection, or just remembering the skills that were learned during the workshop. Typically, learners just need a really quick high level, what was it? Of course, learners might still have access to all of the course content, but they don't want to look through all of it. They just need the high points. So a quick micro-learning that just covers those high points is so valuable for retention. And also you can provide some knowledge checks. If somebody's getting a recertification or needs to keep that certification current, knowledge checks that come to them periodically that require them to answer questions in some way about the course that they took is a great way to keep that learning fresh. So these are just a few ways that we can be using microlearning before, during, and after an instructor-led event. Let's look at some examples in practice. And I'm going to walk through these. If you look at the top of your screen, you see that we're looking at inform and engage right now. So I'm going right back to the model that I showed earlier in the webinar, where the very first way you can use microlearning if you're looking at it from a linear or a chronological view, is to inform and engage. So the example I'm showing right here is with Columbia Sportswear, and this is a real ongoing example. It's happening right now and has been for about a year or so. And the scenario is they're undergoing their largest change in Columbia Sportswear history. And as a part of that, of course, they wanted to let their employees know what's coming. So what did they do? They began with some videos from their highest level of their organization, just saying, hey, here's what's coming. Here's what's in it for you, explaining how I as an employee would be involved. Why is this meaningful to me? Well, it's because it's going to allow you to interact with our customers better, to create more customer loyalty and make you really shine as an employee. Also, we didn't share everything in the video. We created some mystery, so they'd want to know, okay, well, what's coming next, and when will I learn more? Also, it was visually appealing, and of course, that's really easy to do with Columbia because they're an outdoor outfitter, so their pictures are outdoors and a lot of nature and a lot of color and movement. So those are always helpful within your organization. When you're trying to do something like this, ask for your company's branding. Ask for the best of their visual images, of their physical, their buildings, their people, and that's what you want to put into these types of promo videos. What you'll get is what this person is showing here on the screen is you'll get interest, excitement. They'll understand what the key messaging is, because you want to start sharing some of the key messages, some of the key words that they'll begin to hear repetitively as this change comes out. And people become loyal to this change as soon as they start hearing about it because they want to be a part of it. And this is just a picture right here. I was saying this is actually a snip from that video, and here there's actually movement. There's hardly any screen that displays. This is actually a link to one of the alphas that we had done. And there's just a lot of movement and a lot of things happening, but the message is still there front and center. Examples in practice. Now let's look at learning terms, concepts, and skills, which is that area as instructional designers that we're typically working really hard in. It's the meat of what we do. And in this example, it's a tech company, and that tech company needed to teach their employees how to program for artificial intelligence for all of their business clients. So the micro learning that was created here were short. They really culminated in a simulation. But first, a business case was presented. So here's the client, and here's what they need in the form of AI that we can provide. And then there were steps shown. Okay, if we're going to provide if we have this type of client and they need this type of solution, then here are the steps we would need to take to provide that solution. Then there was a simulation, and all of this took just less than 5 minutes to complete. It was very high level. From here, they could go into more in-depth simulations to see the sub-steps involved in programming the AI. So here what you see is a collection of micro-learnings that are interrelated and are actually stepwise, so they go deeper and deeper into the content. But each one itself is, once again, very short. And what you get from these as a learner is you encode by seeing and experiencing. When you see the text, and a lot of these are very text-based, or they might have some infographics that begin. A good way to begin a micro-learning is to start by showing an infographic, and then as your micro-learning continues, you break that infographic apart and explain it. And then the simulations that allow that hands-on experience. And then, of course, most of these do include, as I just said, text. There's often a voiceover also to explain what's happening on the screen. One breakout here I wanted to spend a little bit of time on is learning behaviors. We mentioned soft skills and the importance of microlearning in helping to develop soft skills. The example I have here is a healthcare certification course for typically for more entry-level employees, but clinicians could benefit from this also, just learning how to provide good customer service to patients. So this example is an instructor-led course, and the need is what I was explaining earlier. It's how can students see the desired behaviors that they need to have when they're on the job. So what we did here was, even though it's instructor-led, we created vignettes, or we are in the process. This is one that is in process right now. To represent each aspect of the behavior they are to model. So the acrostic here is care. They need to learn how to connect with their patients, how to access more information about the patients while accessing patient information, how to relate the goods and services they can provide, as well as relating more to that patient in a deeper, just deepening the relationship itself. And finally, expansion, saying, hey, not only can we meet the need that you've stated, we can provide these other things as well. So each of these has a standalone vignette to represent the desired behaviors. So that's one way you can use in real practice a vignette within your instructor-led learning to represent the desired behavior. As far as testing understanding, as I said earlier, you can have micro-learnings that it's all testing. There's no content. It's just reflecting on what has already been presented. And with these, they're typically interactive because the user, the learner, has to do something to show that they are demonstrating what they've learned. It provides practice opportunities, and I love making them competitive wherever we can. We have one person here. I don't think he was able to join today, but David Weaver, he's a student at the University of Alabama. He's creating a Jeopardy-style game. Actually, he created it in Storyline, and we're using it at the end of each of the modules for this healthcare certification. And the students can have some fun reflecting on what they've learned, working in teams, and these are typically lasting just 5 minutes. But it's sort of a precursor to them taking an end of module assessment. So again, something else that's a part of the same course is the certification to make sure they can actually do all the skills that they're learning in the course. And those might be a pass-fail type of assessment. In this case, they are. So the Jeopardy keeps it fun and competitive, where the certification shows that they actually they do know and they can demonstrate the skills that they have to have. The assessment is broken into very small pieces, so they build in each other. I found that builds confidence, and it takes away a lot of the anxiety, is when they just take a small piece of the assessment at a time, and each of those scores build to their total score, and it also makes it easier for them to pass. In the Explore New Worlds, this for us as designers, I think really is new for us as well on the development side. But some of the things I've seen going on here are in manufacturing. I'm also seeing a lot in healthcare as well, just learning how to be in a virtual world and put on your surgical equipment and actually perform surgeries without being, putting any pseudo patient at risk. So that's pretty neat. But here the example I'm using is using augmented reality glasses to see diagnostic information. And if you look at the image here, you can see someone's holding a tablet. And in front of them, as they move that tablet, they're seeing more information on their screen than what they see when they actually look at that piece of machinery. So the screen explains what the pieces and parts are and what they do. So it's that virtual learning experience that they can have and that we can create as designers. Now, what makes these microlearning is again using a lockstep model. So you're more creating a modularized experience for a learner in the AR and VR world, where again, what I said earlier, they cannot proceed to a next level of learning until they demonstrate mastery of their current level, or think of it as like a spatial location. If I'm trying to learn everything on this machine, I can't move to another machine until I've mastered this machine. For the examples in practice, as far as something I wanted to share with you today, is how this actually looks, how microlearning looks in real life scenarios. And that's what we've been doing so far. But on this scenario, I wanted to break it out, put a little bit of a bigger picture on it, as opposed to looking at an individual microlearning that was created, and back out a little bit. And as I'm explaining the need here in this scenario, I would love for you to use your chat and say what you think would be some good microlearning solutions for this client need. So in this first one, it's call center onboarding. If it's onboarding, that means these employees are new to this call center. And the client needs a new curriculum. What they currently have, or their success factors, what they want to see happen is using the content they already have. It's just not in a real usable format, but it exists in various forms. And then the other thing is, once that content is in a useful form for the new hires, though they need those new hires to get up to speed within 2 weeks of hire, or 2 weeks of when they begin onboarding. And then also the ask is that during this time of onboarding, those new hires can correctly use their customer service portal. In this case, they have a really great portal, but not many people know how to use it well. And then they need to be able to demonstrate those key customer service skills. They need to know how to upsell, in other words, sell more than what the customer called in to ask for, and also know what the proper escalation procedures are within the company. So that's the ask. Now, on your chat, if you can share your ideas for what might work well for these onboarding, I would love to see some of your ideas based on what we've already discussed. Okay, and I'm not going to spend too much time here because I know we're running short on time, so I'm going to keep on moving, but do be thinking about that for yourselves, because this is where your creativity can really come into play, and you might have a better idea than what I'm about to describe. But here are some ideas I think that would work for this particular call center request. Notice I don't have all four of the different phases here. Because these are new employees, there's really not a need to inform and engage. They're just ready to get to work. So I began here with learning terms and concepts and skills. And for these, what seems to work really well is having the new employees listen to scenario-based simulated calls. And as they're listening, they are taking notes. They have a performance check sheet where they can say, okay, I can see that these things were done well. Maybe this one wasn't done as well. So they're evaluating calls based on the desired behaviors. These calls are 1 to 3 minutes. And again, that's what would make these a micro-learning product. For testing understanding, what I've seen working well with call centers is when you're taking a new group all together, letting them do some competitive learning games as well as structured assessments. They have to have the structured assessments to demonstrate that they are getting some skill and knowledge mastery, but they also enjoy having those leaderboards around to show how they individually are doing with their peers. And then, oh, I'm sorry, I went past the Explore New Worlds. I think I had something there. Yeah, augmented reality. If you've ever been in a call center, these things can be enormous. And I know I'm directionally challenged, so if you take me to my cubicle, I might not be able to find myself, back to the break room or the restroom or how to leave at the end of the day. So something kind of fun here is to have a visual tour using a tablet with arrows that they point the tablet in a given direction, and it's going to show them what they would find in that direction. So that's just a fun little thing you can use for any type of onboarding to help new employees get familiar with their physical environment. Another example I have here is business-to-business sales certification. This one I see being requested quite a bit, and some of you may be wondering, what is B2B? It just means a salesperson that is selling on behalf of their business to another business. So a concrete example of that might be a food services company like Sodexo. Is their salespeople are selling their food services to cafeterias within schools and government organizations. So that's an example of B2B sales. A certification course, in this case, this company wanted for their salespeople they don't have much time. Their business is making money. And if they're not doing something to do that, to make money, then many times it's considered a waste of time. So they need very small snippets of time to do this, and microlearning is perfect for that. They have to learn their new methodology within 6 weeks from deployment, just in order to make some earning goals for that quarter and for that fiscal year. So they have a limited time window. The content has already been developed, and it is 6 hours of new content. So the request as an instructional designer is to say, how can we break this out in small increments so these salespeople are not using too much time to learn, but they get it. And what they're trying to get are both some soft skills, and you can see what those are here, as well as some skills in using their new virtual assistant. So they've got some artificial intelligence things going on here that they need to learn how to leverage. It's a big investment for the company, but does anyone know how to use it? No. So soft skills and some skills using their AI assistant. And again, I would love for you to share in the chat anyone who has ideas for microlearning that might work well with this scenario. Would love to hear from you and what you might think would be good solutions. I'm going to move on and look at some of the solutions that I had thought of here. In this case, you do need to inform and engage, because these salespeople, again, they're very busy. When they see something like this coming, they're thinking, this means I'm going to lose some money while I'm learning for the company. And it's just a difficult challenge for them to try to balance the two. So you need something that they can see, again, very short, but shows them why it will be worth their time investment. So what we are proposing here is one video just to announce the program at a high level. Here's what you're going to learn, and here's why it has value to you. And then another one to promote the virtual assistant, because it is so new and it's nifty and it's cool and it's really going to be helpful. And then another one to promote those soft skills. And along the lines of the soft skills development, another micro-learning that you may not have thought of falling in this category, but it really does, because it only takes a few minutes for a learner to complete, and that is a pre-assessment. Just something that the learners can take that is built on the objectives of their learning program. So in this case, what they would see is an ability to rate themselves on their soft skills that are a part of this coming program, and if they've had any experience with a virtual assistant. So they will see their results and sort of see where their weak points are, where they want to focus as they're learning, and their manager will see that as well. So it really primes the pump and gets them ready to learn. In the learning terms, concepts, and skills, we would use virtual assistant simulations. So these learners would see how that virtual assistant works, and they would see some interactions with the virtual assistant. These are really views, but it's showing them how to interact with the assistant. So they would see some views, and then they would get to try using the virtual assistant with their microlearning. And these would be very segmented, and they would be again, very short and focused on each feature and benefit of the virtual assistant. So it's really kind of a narration and how-to guide. On the testing and testing understanding, salespeople are by nature competitive, and they tend to really, I've noticed, really enjoy gamification types of learning and testing. So for this group, we would be providing those types of learning opportunities to compare against each other. Have a leaderboard. You know, how am I doing? How am I comparing against my peers who are also going through this program? And of course, they would need the structured quizzes to build those cumulative points toward the certification in this B2B sales program. So, Justin, we have another question here. I would love to hear. I'm going to have him put it up on the board so we can see exactly what the question is. But I would love to see your ideas for a new microlearning experience, or sharing a course that you've been asked to convert. After we looked at all of these, perhaps your horizon has widened a bit, and there's some that you're currently being asked to create, and I'd love to know what those are. What are you creating right now in the form of microlearning? Okay, and I'm not seeing anyone entering here. Do we have people that are trying to enter? Okay, technology, software. Okay, for just-in-time learning, absolutely. Video interviews. Okay. I would love to know more about that. If you can share more, perhaps in the chat. Refreshers. Yeah, food safety, quick service, restaurant business. Awesome. Okay, and it's interesting, to categorize what you're sharing here in terms of the refreshers are those post-learning events, and the just-in-time is obviously just when you need it. How to do a simple computer task. Great. So how-tos. I see these how-tos coming up again and again. Okay, awesome. Love to see those keep going. We will move on, but again, feel free to use the chat to share more examples if you would like. Something else we have to deal with in the world of microlearning are the challenges, the managing microlearning, because if we're managing microlearning, we're managing a lot of little pieces. So let's talk about that for just a few minutes. And as we're talking, again, feel free to use your chat to share some of the challenges you're facing if you're being tasked with the implementation and management of microlearning. First of all, a lot of our products we create are in the forms of e-learning or technology, or all sorts of things actually that can be broadcast to learners through an LMS. So what challenges do we face there? First of all, it's just where and how to place the content on the LMS. I know with the Columbia example I was showing you just a few minutes ago, we actually have a very visual LMS where we can create a visual journey for the learners. And in order to communicate that to our instructional technologists that were building the architecture for our LMS, I literally had to provide a picture of what that learning journey would look like from the various role perspectives. So that was one little mountain to climb, because within that we had 50 maybe assets we were trying to show here, and it made it quite challenging to figure out how to communicate that to our learning technologists. So you might have also encountered that as well. And as I just said, microlearning means micromanagement. So if you're the developer and you're tasked with keeping those modules maintained, then every time one changes, you have to communicate that to your LMS support to make sure those changes are broadcast to the learners. So that is a big piece of ongoing course maintenance that that you may have had to deal with. It seems to be a never-ending process. It was a little easier, I think, when we had large courses from a management perspective when we're broadcasting them. And then on another point of view is one of the things I'm a huge fan of is multiple distribution routes, especially for those inform and engage pieces. So say you created a video and you've distributed it through a mass email communication, through your intranet, and through your LMS, and perhaps shared through social media. Well, the day comes when you need to update that. It's still a good message, but it needs some updating. So when you get ready to update it, you've got to make sure that all those portals that are being viewed by your learners are updated. So for us, having a single reference point for your microlearning is really helpful. In other words, the LMS is pulling from the same source as the intranet and from the link that was in that email. If you can make that happen, then you're going to solve some maintenance and ongoing management problems for yourself. So keep all those channels updated with the same information is one of the things we're really having to deal with when we're managing microlearning. So I'm going to keep on here. I believe we had another chat here or another way to share some information. I would love to hear not only some of your microlearning challenges, Justin, if you can show that, share how you have overcome some of your microlearning implementation challenges. If any of you are working on that side of managing microlearning, could you share some of here's the challenge, and here's how I overcame that challenge. And I'll give you a few minutes to think about that. Okay, I don't want to stay here too long. Looks like we're getting near to the end of our web. Oh, great. I do have one here. Okay, using speech to text instead of a natural voice. Oh, that is a huge problem. Yeah, you had somebody do a great voiceover, and now the regulations have changed, something has changed, and you have to make an update. But where is that person? They're long gone, and you can't find them. And what do you redo the entire voiceover with someone else's voice? And so I love this solution using speech to text, which is getting great, by the way. Sounds very good. A lot better than some of our voiceovers, I have to say. Anything else? All right, that was a really, really good point. And speech to text is a good solution if you've got a good speech to text utility. All right, well, I'm going to move on. If you wanted to share something and did not get to here again, try using that chat. All right, and we are actually down to the point where we can just go back and review our Q&A, and I was not able to watch a lot of the chat as it was coming through. But Justin, if you can join and just share or point out to me any
There
questions you think
was
that were
the
asked
one
about the
main
content
question I
that we
saw
should go
wasn't
back
specifically
and
about the
review
content,
and
but it was about
answer.
making the slides themselves available. So many folks that are joining are interested in seeing if the slides would be available. So I wanted to see if that was something that you were going to be willing to share.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will share these out for you at the end of the
Well,
webinar. And
we'll
Justin, I'll just turn that to you. And I
we'll
think you
figure it out. I mean,
can you make those
TrainingPros is
available, or
going to
do I
release the
turn that to
recording to the
TrainingPros?
session,
I honestly
in the
don't
next
remember
week or
which
two,
I did.
sooner rather than later. So we'll work with Elizabeth to see if we can bundle the slides with that because there was a lot of interest
Okay.
shown in those slides. Outside of that, I didn't see any unanswered questions come through. There was mainly feedback on things that you were talking about
Awesome.
during the session, so there wasn't a whole lot, but we can still use some of the time now if people still have questions.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because that is it for me, and I just love talking about this topic and could talk a lot more. But again, hearing your feedback, your input, how you're leveraging microlearning is a value that we also have when we have these opportunities to do these webinars. So I will be going back through your chat, and typically I prepare a blog and share that out as well, and I try to look back at your chat and incorporate your ideas as well so that we make this a joint learning effort. So thank you again
Yeah,
so
that's
much
fine.
for
One
joining
one question
today
did just come
and
through the
sharing.
chat.
And Justin,
If
I'm
you
just
wanted
going
to
to turn
answer it
this right
briefly
back
or
over to you.
make it available offline, but can you talk about your experience with the person wanting you to work with them in the AI project? Came through there. So.
Oh, yeah. Wow, yeah, that was pretty fascinating. It is a client that doesn't want to be known at all. So I can't really share any specifics, but doing some fascinating things um, in that area. And it really comes down to data analytics was the subject matter. And working with their subject matter experts within the organization to say, all right, how are we going to train these highly intelligent programmers to do what it is you know how to do? And some of the outputs are just amazing what things are going on in the world of AI from health and body mapping to just leveraging the content that organizations are learning through their marketing efforts. It really is mind blowing, but unfortunately, I can't say much about the specifics of it. The simple way to do it again is to work with the SME, create a story, include the business case, because if the programmers don't have a business case to relate back to, then they really don't know how to create an on point solution. Even though they might know the programming, they don't know what they're creating it for.
Okay. Yeah, I
All
think
right.
I'll take over, Teresa. So thank you
I
very
don't think I
much
see anyone with us.
for joining us today. I always find the microlearning topic to be very fascinating, and you always give us a little more each time that you present. So thank you very much for the time that you put into it. Certainly found it valuable. So at this point, I'm going to review just a couple quick slides from some upcoming events that we have going on. Again, we thank TrainingPros for partnering with us to set up these webinars. Please check out our Learning Technologies Master of Science. It's a high-quality program centered here in Central Pennsylvania. It's pretty flexible too, so you can click on the URL there and learn more. We also have professional education opportunities. If you want to check that out, the link is available. And then we have two summits coming up. We have cybersecurity. If you or any of your colleagues are interested in that, you can look us up for our cybersecurity summit coming up in October. And that's it. So at this point, I'm going to go to the feedback slides. Just going to ask you some basic questions about your experience today with the technical quality and the content and the topic. And I just want to thank you for joining, and thank you for those that can stick around and give us the feedback. And we will see you on the next webinar. Have a great day.